When was the last time you hitchhiked?
It was a couple of weeks ago. Hitchhiking is in my blood. The people you meet are just fantastic.
You heard that right. Jim Jackson is 89 years old and he still hitchhikes. Not out of necessity, but because he enjoys it. He started hitchhiking as a young man, but his greatest adventure didn't happen until he was 56 years old. At the time, he lived in Portland, Oregon with his wife Sheila and their 3 kids. Following a visit to his ailing mother here in Tryon, North Carolina, Jim had a little extra time on his hands for the return trip. So instead of flying back to Portland, or even taking a bus, he just went out on his thumb.
I told my 90-year-old mother I was going to take the bus. Now this wasn't a complete lie, because I didn't like the idea that somebody from Tryon would pick me up and give me the first ride. And so at that time, this is 1981, there was a trailway bus that came through Tryon, and it passed along the road about a 2-minute walk from my family home. And it's 5:30 in the morning. So I go down and flag that bus down and ride it to Asheville. The first ride, the man stopped and he asked me a question. Did your car break down? I was always getting that kind of question. No, my car didn't break down. Well, where are you going? Thinking I was going to my job somewhere there in Asheville, probably. And I said, I'm going to Oregon. You going where? Going to Oregon. Well, he rode me about 300 yards. It's time for him to turn off to his ride. It was the shortest ride, probably the most insignificant ride that I had of the whole trip, but it really made an impression. As he rode away, I saw him shaking his head. My second ride was with a young black man. He and I just hit it off. We were both into civil rights. We shared the books we had read, the people we'd known, movements we were knowing about, and so forth and so on. We were having a wonderful time. He was going to work, but he had to let me off after about 20 minutes. And I reached over to thank him for the ride. But before I could do it, he turned to me and he says, you know, you made my day. He tells me that. He'd give me the ride. It absolutely froze me. I got out of the car. I hadn't even said thank you, nothing. But at this point, I knew that I was going to have a great trip. And I decided to log the trip. It turned out to be 44 rides.
Wow.
Across the country. Next ride was from a college professor. He was in college administration, small college administration. We shared each other's backgrounds and so forth. And we had breakfast together. And in the middle of breakfast, he says to me, you know, I think we have the perfect spot for you on our staff, our college. Well, he said it as I had a mouthful of grits. It just about choked me, and then it got my tickle bone, and the grits were all over the place. And he said, what's so funny? I'm offering you a job. And I said, I could just see you introduce me to the rest of the staff, the faculty, saying, you'll never guess where I picked up our newest staff member. One was a man who was in the business of training prize bloodhounds. He asked me where I was going. Said Oregon. Going to Oregon? Oh, wow. He says the finest stud bloodhound in the United States is in Salem, Oregon. He says we have to get our bitch shipper out to Oregon, and I said, well, I'll be glad to take her. I think it'd be great to hitchhike with a dog. All the dog lovers would pick you up. But in the end, he said, no, I can't let you do that because I don't know, the owner of the dog is out of town, and he says I can't tell him that that I sent his prize bitch off with a hitchhiker. First day, he got me up to St. Louis, across the country, in Kansas the next day. We went on to western Colorado, and then to northern Utah. I said, with good luck, I'll make it home tomorrow. I didn't know what kind of day it was going to be. First ride, this man opened the door, looked at me gruffly. He was in his 80s. Then he says, well, I guess you're all right. Get in. Always with a gruff voice. And we rode along a little ways. He says, we're going to take a detour. Well, I didn't know where the detour was going, but I'd go with him on the detour. And the road kept getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, it was just like a cow path. And he drove me over to this area. And he had been the keeper of the gates for the irrigation system. So he wanted to explain all of that to me. He was reliving, probably nobody else wanted to listen to him, I don't know. Telling me about his 35 years of working in this job. And so I tried to ask an intelligent question. didn't know anything about irrigation locks. But I said, is this the area where Evel Knievel made his aborted jump across the Snake River, the canyon there? He said, oh yes, I'm taking you there. And so we rode through the area, and all this water is rushing toward you and so forth. It was a tremendous experience. And we got out on the highway, and suddenly he says, oh, I missed my turnoff. And with that, he crosses over the green part that divides the interstate. And guess who was waiting? The police. And so he got a ticket, and he says, well, I guess that ruins our day. I said, well, it may have ruined your day. It hasn't ruined mine. I want to know where you're taking me. So he was taking me over the area where Evel Knievel had his jump. And he took me down in the canyon, riding these little roads that nobody else would ride. And we ended up having a Chinese dinner in a town close by. And when he left me out on the road, I had the feeling that he felt that I was his son. It was just a warm, warm experience. Next ride, probably the most philosophical. It was a young fellow, 30 years old. And he said, he's caught in a trap. He's caught in a trap. Both his dad and his grandfather had made a lot of money as young men, as I have. And they both died about the age of 40. And their whole goals were to make money. And that's been my whole goal. Nothing else seems to matter. Make money. And I wonder how to get out of this sort of thing. Anyway, we had supper together and further conversation, and then went to a filling station, and still in conversation. My head was turned toward him, and suddenly I saw two pistols next to his head. I turned to the right, there were 2 pistols next to my head. Ordered to get out. And so here they ordered me into the police station, handcuffed me in the back, and wanted to know who I was. And I told them I was a hitchhiker. That seemed dumb. I mean, a man my age doesn't hitchhike across the country like this. And and they gave me the old treatment. This man, I'd call him Fritz the Fierce, was in my face, just like they did in the Army training. He was in my face and gave me a rough time. And it didn't bother me that much because I knew what he was doing. And had this preparation in the Army. And so after he finished, here came this big, sort of lovable, big guy. He put his arm around me. Oh, don't hold it out on Fritz. He's had a rough war. And that's the one you're to soften up to. They said, had asked me who can vouch for me, and I gave them the name of my minister in Tryon. And I said, if you call him, please tell him not to call my mother. Well, here these guys standing around. They all looked at each other. Is this guy for real? Not to call his mother. Anyway, finally they said, what can we do for you? They believed me. And here I saw an opportunity to fulfill a secondary goal in my life. But maybe just one night, spending the night in a prison. And I said, could I spend the night in your jail? And they looked at each other. This guy really doesn't have it, does he? Anyway, they said they couldn't do that. And finally they said, I said, I am not leaving here. You say this man stole his car. All I know about this man is he was good to me. I know nothing else about him. I am not leaving here until I have an opportunity to thank him. They couldn't let me do that, couldn't let me do that. Finally, I guess they were so anxious to get rid of me that they said, okay, you can go in and briefly talk to him, which I did. Anyway, the next day, I was approaching Portland, and I was let out on the wrong side of Portland. I was let out on the east side of Portland. I lived on the west side of Portland. So I called Sheila, my wife, and I said, meet me at the $4 million bathtub. What is a $4 million bathtub? It was a city block in the city of Portland that they had set aside for a recreational park, all water, everything water. And the kids just loved it, but the town facetiously felt that it was throwing away $4 million, and that's why they named it the $4 million bathtub. Anyway, I made my way there. There were Sheila and the kids, and we had a wonderful time. Oh, what a reunion that was. So then this was ride number 44, going to my home, best ride of all, but not before we had one more splash in the $4 million bathtub. That's it, gang.